Hi, welcome, Dorcas. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks, Asai. Good to see you as well.
Good to see you. So, could you please introduce yourself to us?
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Dorcas Thorpe. I currently lead strategy and transformation at LAPO Microfinance Bank in Nigeria. Besides that, I function on the board of a couple of companies across, technology, um, finance, education, health, insurance as well. And I've done that for over 5 years now. So that has been a very big part of my management and leadership journey over time. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'm really glad to speak with you about board governance and just the expectations from board members, because I think sometimes as founders, we're not as clear. And so I'm glad we get to speak about this. So let's go straight into the first question. Why should founders care about board expectations or board governance, especially if they're not looking to raise funds right now?
Hmm. Great question. So the first thing is just to understand that it's the foundation, right? If you don't set the foundation right from the start, then you're going to have issues. So what the board helps to do is to provide that accountability or responsibility for founders. So you know you're accountable to a set of people who are going to ask questions, who are going to demand for reports, who are going to look into, how the business is structured, who are going to, critique your strategy, your expansion plan. All of those things helps founders to think beyond just the day-to-day operations, right? Because as founders, I mean, you're at that start, you are almost everything in the business. You're the CEO, you're the HR person, you're the finance person, because you're starting. So you can get so consumed in the day to day and forget, about strategy and, creating systems that will help you scale. So having a board is actually setting the right foundation for founders. It creates, like I said, you're accountable, and then it puts you not really on the edge per se, but it just puts you in a position where um, you can't just do anything and just go about it, and that's what helps businesses become sustainable. So before you even talk about funding or raising funds, it would be good to say you started a business, quickly set up a board. And I know setting up a board can be a different conversation, because you're thinking, who do I have on the board? But I hope we can touch on that as we go on. However, it's not as difficult as it seems, or as people talk about it. Just get information, get knowledge on what you should have or who you should have on your team, as the board. So I'll stop there.
Okay, sounds good. And I think we definitely need to touch on creating a board because it does sound complicated.
Mhm.
So I think let's just go into that. What are some of your recommendations around that, like creating a board, and what can we kind of expect from these people if we decide to create a board and bring these people in? Like, what does that usually look like?
Right. It depends on the type of business, but the starting point usually could even be as simple as having one or two family members on the board. Because in constituting the board, as much as you want expertise, you want, that different opinion, you also want people who, for lack of words, have your back to a large extent, right? Because of the dynamics that can play as the board, as the company grows, right? So it could even be as little, like I said, as having one or two family members who are who bring great stuff to the table, whether it's in their expertise, in their experience as well. If they're already into business, then fantastic. Again, looking at the type of business you're doing, it'd be good. So if I were a tech founder, I would want to have somebody who understands tech on my board. I also want that, kind of checkmating to a large extent. I want that, extra insight, based on their experience as well on the board. Another thing is to look at is, finance. I would say, having someone who, understands finance, whether it's from an accounting perspective or, core finance, that's a great resource to have on any board, no matter how small the board is. So another one may be risk management, right? You want to have someone who, looks at compliance, who looks at risks, who would help you, put brakes when you're going too fast and all of that on the board. So that kind of dynamics helps, look at different areas of your organization. So again, it doesn't have to be very elaborate, even in terms of number. It could just be three, starting with three members on the board or four members on the board. But you have created a system that helps you become accountable. And that's what's important. So that's what I would share. I mean, as you grow and if you're in a regulated environment or your business is regulated, then of course there are some guidelines to who you should have on the board based on regulation. So at that level, you can obviously work around that.
Okay, awesome. So this person has bought into this conversation and they're thinking about inviting people to become on their board. Now, what would you say are some things that founders need to know about when they're thinking about board meetings? Like, how can they prepare for board meetings, and what do they need to understand that the board members are expecting from them during those board meetings?
Right. Okay. I think, you first need to understand that the board is there to serve you, right? Yeah, they're there to serve you. They've committed their time, their resources, their efforts, to serve you. And so you come as someone who is hungry as well for that kind of, support, right? So it's beyond just, preparing, reports and, just presenting a report. You also should prepare to have, questions, ask questions that can help you in your next phase, in that next quarter, if your meetings are quarterly, right? But a deep understanding of the fact that the board is there to serve you helps you prepare well beyond just a routine reporting of reports, right? And one thing that can help also is your communication, how you're able to communicate that clearly, how you're able to envision where you're going to, and then get the buy-in of the board members, to see that vision with you. And that's why communication is very important for founders. It's one thing to know it all and to feel it all, but are you able to share that vision and then get people on board with you, to influence people to see in the same direction as you? Right. Doing that with the board helps. So as you're preparing for meetings, you're looking at the reports, you're looking at strategy, you're coming prepared with questions, and also doing your homework to a large extent. It can be frustrating for board members when certain minimum expectations are not met in conversations. So it's important that you don't take it lightly to say, what, okay, say you have a board of 3, 4, and 1 or 2 are family members, and you want to just take it like that. No, it's a constitution, it's an institution that's been set. You need to respect the time and then the resources of the board, and then come prepared in that sense. Yeah.
Oh, I really like that. I think it's really important to respect the time, respect the expertise, even if they're related to you. I mean,
Exactly.
they're still experts in
Exactly.
what they're doing. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about like a strategic versus a reactive founder.
Mm.
What would you say is the difference there, and how does that impact how much benefit that you can get from your board if you are just if you're strategic or you're just reactive?
Right. It's simply, the ability of the founder to be future forward and forward thinking, really. Proactive in how, issues are handled, how issues are presented as well at, board meetings. So for me, if you're strategic, you're able to see, you're almost one step ahead to a large extent. And then you're able to guide people and to communicate that clearly in terms of resolving issues or direction strategy. You're thinking about the future of the business, not just today. You're providing insight into what could be for the future, and then the board, obviously from their wealth of experience and exposure can then provide support in that sense. So as a founder, the weight is really on you because you're the visionary to a large extent. I mean, in fact, you are the visionary. You have to be one step ahead almost at every time, and then be proactive in dealing with challenges, in dealing with the board, even in relationship, with the board members. You have to also be proactive about that. So that's one of the difference I would say about founders who are strategic. They're able to connect the dots quickly. You can't afford not to know a lot of things. So getting knowledge is important. You have to stay updated with what's happening in your industry, across other industries, and then just be able to connect the dots together quickly before everyone else. So that's how we define a strategic founder.
That's great. And by connecting those dots, you're able to get more out of your board. Your board can
Exactly.
support you more. I really like that. What would you say is a governance blind spot that founders often overlook? They're not paying attention to it.
Mm. I would say it's culture, right? And I know it can be interesting to say how cultural governance, how do they relate, but it's again the foundation. And like we know, we've heard several times that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I've seen that so many times, right? And it's a blind spot for founders because when you start, you're so busy trying to set things up. You're so busy, even trying to get funding and all of that, and you're not paying attention to the culture that you're building in the organization, which starts even from your hiring, right? So you find founders who have delegated that so much that they don't even know who is coming in at that early stage. It is such a blind spot because years to come, you will see the impact on your business. So I would say, being very intentional and deliberate about the kind of culture you want to build for your organization, because it's people who drive governance, it's people who comply, who set policies and procedures and processes that builds a good governance culture in the organization. So I would say it's very important for founders to really pay attention to people in the organization, the culture that the organization is building. Then begin, and when you start to think about culture, you obviously start to think about processes and policies to address a lot of things, whether it's in finance, it's in risk management, it's in HR, because you're intentional about the kind of culture you want. Those things you put in place early on, and they will help you grow, build a sustainable business that will last and even, outlive you as a founder. And that's really what's important.
I really like that. And so let's talk a little bit more about culture, but this time about the board culture. So
Mm.
what would you say, like, how can a founder create a board culture that helps them to accomplish the goals, to make hard decisions, and they don't feel stifled?
Right. So two things for me would be communication and transparency. So people definitely ask questions because they don't understand. And sometimes we think because you've communicated, then you've actually people understand you. But that's the importance of founders also getting effective communication skills. It's not enough to just say, I know how to speak, you can talk. Go and learn communication so you can clearly communicate things across the people and also the board. So boards become, create boards become a bit, you know, tough when they don't understand certain things or when things are also not communicated clearly. I've seen that also. Because we're assuming you've not told us, so we're assuming that you don't have this, you don't have that. We're assuming that you don't know what you're doing because you haven't clearly communicated if you actually do, right? So in the reporting, in how you're communicating at the board meetings, it needs to come out clearly that you're on top of things, you know what's happening, you have details, of, the business, you are thinking about the business, you are, actively involved in the growth of the business. Um, the second thing on transparency is that, you just have to come out clean with whatever it is, especially that requires what requires the board's attention or decision. So if you create a board and the decisions are probably already made before the board meeting, then they feel like they're not effective, they are not needed. But when you're transparent with, data, with reports, with issues, and then you're seeking opinions and also advice and all of that, it gets them to feel involved in the decisions of the organization. So I think those two things can help you build a culture where the board thrives and also allows you to thrive. I've seen, where approvals are taken to the board and it's declined. Why? Simply because it wasn't clearly explained, right? It probably is on, in print, but the life you give to the document is also important. I mean, we know this, that in terms of communication, effective communication, just about maybe less than 7% of the actual content what you're saying, more is, how you're presenting it, body language, how you're speaking. So if you understand those things as well, it helps you to clearly communicate, make them understand, see reasons, always tied also back to how it affects the growth of the business. So again, boards are looking for insight into, okay, how does this make sense for us as a business? The numbers. So it's still also about numbers, and that's why transparency is also important.
That's so good. Transparency, providing the data, communicating well.
Yeah.
So for like board members who are there, they're willing to serve, they're willing to support. What kinds of questions can a founder ask that will make the board member feel like, oh, this is impressive, this person is prepared, they value our time, versus a
Mm.
question that a founder might share and the board member's like, why am I here? You're wasting time, kind of thing. What are your opinions there?
Yeah. So for me, it's not so much the kind of question, it's how you ask the questions. Because I mean, in this business or in your business or in the environment, there really isn't wrong or right answers because at any point you can get insights from anyone. But it's how the questions are asked that could be a challenge. So if I were a board member and the CEO comes almost every time to say things like, okay, what should we do about this? I'm like, you're asking what we should do. Have you have you done your assessment, your analysis? What data are you bringing to even help that decision making? What options are you bringing? What suggestions are you bringing? Not just complaining and say, what should we do about this? It's better to come, with, okay, we've seen this challenge. These are one, two, three ways that we could go about it. What do you think about it? Or do you have, any additional insight to provide? So it can be the same question, but presented differently. One shows that you have actually also done your assessment and you understand what you're talking about. The other is just a lazy man's job, and just asking the board, what should we do about this, right? So that's how I see it. Because for questions, I mean, anything can be a valid question for the board. Again, they're there to serve you. So I don't think founders should be very weary about, is this a stupid question to ask or not, right? Because you can definitely get very deep insights from the most insignificant question in that sense. But it's how you ask the question and what you do before, even asking those questions that I would say is important.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. At least do some research, at least come with some ideas and some thoughts,
Yeah.
especially because you're the one in the day to day, right? Like the board is not.
Exactly.
And so,
Exactly. And we assume that the board they know these things. No, they don't. They know what you provide to them, right? So if you're not, as transparent as possible, you're not communicating clearly, the decisions and the assumptions will be based on that. So that's why I really keep saying it, that come with, data, be open with those conversations, and then let them help you. Except you have, for any reason, the members on your board are not on your side in that sense, but they're there to help you. The conversations can, go different ways. It can be very tough at some points, but at the end of the day, it's to help you. Yeah.
hmm, okay. So What would you recommend to a founder to help them to create an innovative culture, especially now that a lot of people are looking to integrate AI?
Mm. Yeah, I think the first thing is, the integration in the organization first, in terms of the day-to-day operations, your management, and that starts with awareness first, because AI is still pretty new, if I would say, and most people are just seeing the um, just a piece of the pie, right now with the solutions that are out there. So there's still a lot of knowledge gaps that exist. So if you want to build that culture, start first with, education, providing, having avenues where these things are discussed, providing trainings for, key staff members, so that they understand it and then also understand AI for business and how it can help your business. That's one thing. Of course, when you do that, you begin to have teams who are going outside that, and they're already on their own, looking for AI tools, technologies that can help improve their efficiency and their processes. So once you start there from creating that awareness, it becomes like a bottom top approach, situation in building the culture. Then for the board, of course, again, awareness is important. I don't know that many members on the board are very aware about the power of AI and what it can do. So it's still your responsibility to create that awareness, have board specific trainings or specific trainings, AI trainings for the board members. Try to connect the dots, show the impact of applying AI in your business, even as little as say presentations, for example. The quality of reports, the quality of analysis that's now happening because you're leveraging AI tools. That ability to show the impact can get people on board quicker than just telling and expecting that to happen. If maybe another one is just to say, create an open policy to a large extent that helps, colleagues test, experiment with these things, right? So there's no wrong, just experiment, see what works for you, what you can apply. Yeah, so those are a few things you can do.
Mm, okay. And so for somebody who is listening to this and they're just like, okay, I want to create my board. Um, we talked about a few things. What would you say is the one thing that they can do today to get started so that they can create a strong board or to have like board membership that's actually supportive and positive for them?
Mhm. The first thing is to write it down. As simple as that sounds. um, we have this idea and it's in our head. I want to have a board. I want to have a board. You haven't sat down to really construct what that is for you. To write it plainly as to what do I need, what do I need the board to do, or what are my current challenges? Who do I need on the board? Whether you're in a regulated environment or not, who do you need on the board? What am I struggling with? Am I struggling with finance? Am I struggling with technology? Do I need someone like that on the board? And then you go into who should be on the board. In writing it down, I mean, names and people will come to you because now you're intentional about it. It's beyond just no, I want to. You're beginning to put them in, on paper or in your, writing them down. Um, People begin to come to you as to who you can have on the board, and then just set it up. Reach out and set it up. That's the first step. So once you do that and you set it up, the others would come in. You know, at some point you begin to talk about board committees. That's, can be later on if you don't want to do that immediately. But committees will come in. So just start with even 3 to 4 members on your board and look at the areas, like I said, areas where you need support, areas that are critical for your business, right? So if you're in the tech space, it would be nice to have someone who is tech on your board, right? It helps because the board is the highest governance body in terms of the structure, and so decisions are made by the board. You don't want decisions to be rejected just from a place of misunderstanding. So having someone who really understands your industry on the board helps, to helps that approval process and acceptance process at the board level. So that's something to definitely consider. But like I said again, it's just start to write it down and quickly set it up. Then, of course, I would add that you have a some kind of a policy as well immediately you start, and that would feature like a board charter, right? Where you specify duration, tenure for your board members. You don't want to bring in people and then there's no exit in terms of performance. There's nothing to also guide performance, right? So as you start with the membership, you also look at the charter, and these things can easily gotten online as to what the charter should be like. So it can be a 1, 2, 3 page document that clearly defines the responsibilities of the board members, the tenure of the board members. You can start with, okay, 3 years, right, on the board. And after 3 years, you would renew in that sense. It gives you that opportunity to assess the performance. And if they're not doing well, they know that at the end of 3 years, they're just going to go from there. So that's important to also set right from the beginning when you're creating a board.
Wow, this has been such a rich conversation. And I love that we ended in like this place where there's so much more that we can talk about. So someone listening to this or watching this might say, okay, I need to connect with Dorcas. She has a lot of great ideas about board membership. And I just want to connect with her and learn more about the work that she's doing. What would you say is the best way for them to connect with you?
Via LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. Via LinkedIn. And then, of course, once we start the conversation, of course, I can share my email address and then we can, take it on from there. But yeah, definitely via LinkedIn.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been such a great conversation. I learned a lot, and I think it's really insightful for us as we are working as founders and we want to keep growing. So thank you so
Mm.
much.
Thank you, Sai, for the opportunity and great work you're doing at PAUSE. Looking forward to the conference as well. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you.